Shona, welcome to Speaker Spotlight.
Thank you.
It's fantastic to have you here and to be involved with Dyslexia Show 2024.
I'm delighted to be involved.
So, can you tell me a little bit about your career background and your work within neurodiversity?
Yes, so I work in change management. I've worked in change management for nearly 20 years, so longer than I care to admit. And I know I don't look like I've worked in change management for nearly 20 years. I am dyslexic, which is something I should probably start with. I was diagnosed as an adult, but as a young adult, I was diagnosed at university, and I found that step change between school and university just that little bit difficult. And that's when it was picked up that I had dyslexia. And I would say that I've been on a journey since then to sort of really discover a bit about myself and how my brain works. My career is largely been in engineering, and I currently work in the tech side of Arcadis. A lot of what I do is about engaging people and talking to people and picking up on social cues and understanding what makes people tick. So I often say to people, I've made a really strong career for myself out of being dyslexic, because my job is to understand where people think and feel, as opposed to spending my time analysing lots of data. I spend my time analysing people and their relationships.
And you've got a phenomenal career, and I must say, for people watching this who may be feeling a bit, you may be recently diagnosed or struggling, because unfortunately dyslexia and any neurodiverse condition can come with that low self-esteem, but all your strengths and what make you so, being able to read people, find what makes people tick, even with engineering, work, seeing the bigger picture, these are all the strengths that come with being dyslexic and neurodiverse.
Absolutely. And I think, the advantage that I have is that I've been on this journey, and to anyone who's newly diagnosed, you'll get there. Is the advice I would give them. You just have to believe in yourself, and you have to sometimes find those strengths that you don't know exist. I often say it takes an awful lot of strength and courage to come to grips with how your brain works and to be that self-critical and self-reflective person. But I'm not good at certain things, and my team, I surround myself with a strong team, and I'm honest, and my team know you don't want me to be taking notes in a meeting, because I won't be listening. If I'm taking notes, I'm concentrating on taking those notes. And back when I started work, I was quite often the only female, or was the youngest member of the team, and I was female, and I would go into a room and I would be expected to take notes. And it took me a couple of years, but then I would just say, no, I'm sorry, you don't want me taking notes. I'm not the best person to take notes, and it's not fair to constantly ask me to do that. Because the thing about being dyslexic and being a woman is that I have more than one protected characteristic, and then we start to move into intersectionality around what makes me me. And so I think you'll find that different people have different experiences within the workplace around how dyslexia affects them and what people expect of them as well. And I think it's a really key part of embracing who you are, is having the courage to say, I'm sorry, that isn't my strength and I need help to do that.
Absolutely. And it's that self-awareness, and also the more confident you are within you, and which it's a work in progress, we're all a work in progress, but the more confidence you feel in you, the more you can set that boundary and stand up and say, actually, do you know what, I'm not doing this. And it can be really challenging, especially in the working environment, and especially as a woman, it can be really challenging, but you're living proof that it can be done, and you've flown your career.
I am, but I do have a lot of very frank and honest conversations with people about what my strengths are. Even now, recently this year, I spoke to my boss, and he wanted me to write a board paper for our executive team. And I said I was really happy to do it, but I would need some support and guidance because of my dyslexia. I would just need some support in how I was to structure that document. And I was really clear with him about what I needed, and I got it done, and it wasn't a problem. But that, I do recognise that comes from a 20-year career of growing that confidence to talk to people. And I also recognise that not everybody will have the same responses that I've had. And I have had negative responses when I've talked about my dyslexia with employers, but previously. But tended to have a bit of strength in myself to be able to stand up for myself and say, no, that's not right. So I do think it does come a lot from your own inner strength, and I would encourage anyone who is newly diagnosed or really struggling to reach out and ask for help and support.
And again, that inner strength comes from, you know, years of working on yourself and having that, and especially at what you're talking about there, it is still that lack of understanding in the workplace. Even though we hear it, we know we're in this field, but people have heard of dyslexia, but they still don't understand it's much more than reading and writing. It affects you in all different ways, and that's where the workplace needs more accommodating to that.
I completely agree. But one of the things that I'm a real advocate of is we focus on the negative. Dyslexia, yeah, okay, dyslexia affects me in a way that it does affect my reading and writing, it does affect my cognitive functioning. But actually, I have some superpowers that come with that and some strengths. And I remember an incident, it was a good few years ago, and I was newly on a project, and the project director had asked me to go into a meeting room and just observe, make some notes, and just observe and come out and tell her what I thought the issues were. And she was an engineer, and I came out and I had pages of notes because I was feverishly writing away because I wasn't taking notes on the meeting, I was taking notes on my observations. And I came out and I ran through a whole bunch of things of observed behaviours that I saw, observed body language, observed tone, observed the way that they were interacting. And I was able to identify that part of the problem that we had wasn't fundamentally like in the data, it was the way people were interacting and the way that they were feeling that was driving some of the behaviours that we were finding challenging. And we were able to address that. And that was a real strength of mine that nobody else had been able to address because everybody else had come at it from a neurotypical perspective, and you took a neurodiverse perspective, and suddenly you're getting a bigger picture from it.
I ask you, Shona, because you've got such a fantastic mindset and your team feel really motivated because you all embrace the differences. But what would you say to a workplace to embrace dyslexia and neurodiversity, have that positive mindset that you have around it?
Well, I say it quite often in my workplace because I sit on a number of forums and panels for these things. And I think a lot of workplaces are starting to embrace this. But I think what I would say to workplaces is when someone comes to you and says, I've got dyslexia, the immediate reaction is to look at the negative of what can't they do. But actually, it's really about providing the opportunity to do what they can do and giving them reasonable adjustments so that they can do the things that they find more difficult more easily, and also making some allowances, so maybe some extra time and things like that. So I think for all workplaces, what I would say is embrace the diversity and find the strengths that people have. But what I would say to anyone who is neurodiverse, and I've seen it because I've done it myself, we tend to lead with, by the way, I'm neurodiverse, so I can't do all of these things. And I would implore everybody to start those conversations with, I'm neurodiverse, these are my strengths, and these are the things that I find difficult, because we lead with the negativity and we almost apologise for being difficult when you're not being difficult. This is just how your brain works. Lead with the positives, frame it as a positive conversation, because diversity is positive, and diversity of thought is what makes us and makes our organisations successful. And that is what I would encourage.
It's honestly a breath of fresh air, Shona, and it's that reframing. It's absolutely that reframing and turning it into a positive saying, by the way, I'm neurodiverse, this doesn't define me, however, these are all the strengths that come with me. And it's about celebrating that and utilising your strengths.
Absolutely. And I think as well, you know, with organisations, one of the other things I would encourage them to is to reduce the amount of red tape that they have around making reasonable adjustments, because quite often there's a number of approvals and it goes through, you know, particularly in large organisations, it can take a long time to get reasonable adjustments. And what I would say when it comes to someone who's neurodiverse, and this is the way you need to think about it, if you were a window cleaner and you needed to go in a harness or climb a ladder, but you had only one leg, you would provide specialist equipment, otherwise they wouldn't be able to clean your windows. Why are we making it so difficult for people who are neurodiverse to get the specialist equipment that they need in order to do their jobs effectively? And it's almost because we can't see the impact that it's having on their brains. And that's the shift that I would suggest in mindset that employers need to have.
I can't recommend, especially employers, hiring managers, HR teams, to come and see your talk at the Dyslexia Show, because I think it's going to be really insightful and beneficial for them to take it back to their teams and see how the positives that you talk about with neurodiversity. But in the meantime, where can people find you and find out more about your work that you do?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Shona Clydesdale. By all means, find me on LinkedIn. You can find me, I work at Arcadis, so you by all means look up Arcadis and get in touch. But you know, I sit on a number of different panels. I get involved in things that I can get involved in. But because I'm neurodiverse, it does tend to be a little bit chaotic. It's because